The sun was just beginning to set, casting an orange glow over the towering skyscrapers in downtown. Inside the glass-walled office of Hales and Carter Investments, the atmosphere was tense. The room was filled with sharp suits, gleaming leather chairs, and expensive glass tables that reflected the brilliance of the city outside. At the head of the room sat Mr. Carter, the CEO, a man known for his ruthless business mind and sharp demeanor. His presence alone filled the room with authority, making everyone around him move with purpose. He glanced at his watch, impatiently waiting for the meeting to start. As he adjusted his tie, his eyes flickered briefly towards the back of the room. There, standing silently by the wall, was Maya, the company's black maid. She was holding a tray of water bottles, her posture straight, as she carefully avoided any eye contact. She had been working in this office for the past few weeks, but to the executives in the room, she was nothing more than invisible. She was just a maid, someone who cleaned, refilled the coffee pot, and made sure the office looked perfect. That was the extent of her role. She wasn't supposed to be part of the discussions, and certainly not someone who would ever be considered for anything beyond her assigned tasks. Mr. Carter cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the silence. "Let's get this meeting started," he said, looking over at his senior executives, who quickly scrambled to settle into their seats. The tone of his voice was commanding, as if he was the only one in the room whose opinion mattered. Maya, however, wasn't focused on Mr. Carter's presence or the pomp of the boardroom. As she placed the tray on the table, she overheard snippets of the conversation about a shipment that was arriving late. Maya had overheard this discussion before, but today, something about it caught her attention. She had been cleaning the executive floors for months, and in that time, she had picked up more than just dusting skills. She had learned the inner workings of business deals, how to read contracts, and how to spot errors in them. She had a knack for understanding logistics, even though no one ever asked for her opinion. As she was about to walk out of the room, she heard the mention of a potential delay in a shipment. The shipment was crucial to a multi-million-dollar deal the company was working on. If it didn't arrive on time, the deal would fall apart. Maya's instincts kicked in. She had seen the shipping schedule for the past few weeks and remembered noticing a discrepancy in one of the dates. She knew that the shipment was not as delayed as the executives were making it seem. It was a simple mistake that could be easily fixed. Without thinking twice, Maya reached for her phone and dialed the number of the shipping company. She had already memorized the contact details after seeing them so often while cleaning the executives' desks. She didn't wait for the usual polite greeting before speaking directly. "Hi, this is Maya Williams from Hales and Carter Investments. I'm calling to confirm the status of Shipment 27. There seems to be an issue with the delivery date. Can you double-check?" Her tone was calm, professional, as though she had done this 1,000 times before. The line went quiet for a moment as the person on the other end checked the records. "I'm afraid there's been a slight mix-up. The system shows a delay, but the shipment was actually delivered 2 days ago. We were just waiting for confirmation from the receiving department." Maya felt a sense of relief wash over her as she listened. "Thank you," she said, before hanging up the phone. She knew what she had to do. She had to let the executives know that the shipment was already there, and the only thing that needed to be done was the paperwork. But as she turned to leave, Mr. Carter's voice stopped her. "Maya," he called out sharply, his gaze cold. She turned to face him, her heart racing. "Yes, sir?" she asked, her voice steady despite the nerves creeping up inside her. "Why are you still here? I told you to leave the meeting room." Mr. Carter's tone was dismissive, but Maya didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eyes. "Sir, I believe there's been a mistake regarding the shipment. It was delivered 2 days ago, but no one checked the receiving records. If you want, I can help resolve it," she said, her words confident, even though her heart was pounding in her chest. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to her. Mr. Carter's eyebrows furrowed in disbelief. No one, especially not a maid, should have the audacity to correct him, especially in front of his team. But something in Maya's voice, her composure, made him hesitate. The seconds felt like hours as the room waited for his response. Finally, with a stern look, he spoke. "Fine, prove it. But I don't want to hear another word from you unless it's about the shipment." He waved her off dismissively, but the tension in the room had shifted. Maya could feel it, the unspoken challenge that now lay between them. It wasn't just about the shipment anymore. It was about proving that she was more than just a maid. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and Maya stepped out, holding her breath. The silence in the hallway was deafening as she walked toward the executive office. Mr. Carter had asked for proof, and she had delivered. Now it was time to face the consequences. She couldn't afford to make a mistake. She knew that if she failed to impress now, her moment would be gone. The faint click of her heels on the polished floor was the only sound as she approached the boardroom. As she reached for the handle, her heart raced. Her hand trembled slightly, but she steadied herself. She couldn't afford to show any fear. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The room fell silent. Mr. Carter was seated at the head of the table, flanked by his senior executives. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with expectation. All eyes turned to Maya as she entered. She could feel the weight of their gaze, but she held her ground. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised to see her back so soon. "I thought I told you to stay out of this, Maya," he said, his voice cold. She met his gaze directly, her chin slightly raised. "I apologize for the interruption, sir, but there's an urgent matter that requires your attention. I've spoken with the shipping department, and the delivery issue has already been resolved." She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was still, no one moving, no one speaking. For a moment, there was only silence. Mr. Carter didn't react right away. Instead, he looked at the other executives, as if searching for validation or perhaps an excuse to dismiss her. But there was none. He turned his attention back to her, his expression unreadable. "Explain it to me," he said, his tone less harsh but still firm. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady as she began to explain. The shipment was recorded as delayed, but it was actually delivered 2 days ago. The receiving department had simply not processed the paperwork. I've already corrected the records and ensured the proper departments were notified. Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. The room remained still, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya continued, not missing a beat. "It wasn't a complicated issue, but no one had noticed until now. If I hadn't stepped in, the shipment would have remained in limbo, causing unnecessary delays." She paused, waiting for a reaction. For the first time, Mr. Carter seemed to consider her words. His sharp eyes narrowed as he looked at her, assessing. Maya felt the weight of his gaze, but she didn't flinch. She knew that if she showed any weakness now, it would all be over. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Carter spoke. "I see." His voice was low, almost a whisper. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't dismissal either. It was something different, something she hadn't expected, a grudging respect, maybe, but there was still a long way to go. "I'm impressed, Maya," he said, his words cutting through the silence. "Not many people would have the courage to step up like that, especially someone in your position." The room was still. Mr. Carter looked around at the executives, who were now exchanging glances, some nodding subtly. It was clear that they were starting to realize the same thing. Maya wasn't just the maid. She wasn't just a bystander in the company's success or failure. She was part of the solution. "You've proven yourself, Mr. Carter continued, his voice still steady, but now with a slight edge of approval. "I'll make sure the paperwork is updated, but understand this. Maya, you'll need to prove yourself again. This isn't the end. You've earned this moment, but you haven't earned the right to stay in this room yet." Maya stood tall, her heart still racing, but her posture unwavering. "I understand, sir," she said, her voice firm. "I'll do whatever it takes." As Mr. Carter nodded and turned back to his papers, Maya felt a strange sense of accomplishment wash over her. She had earned something more than just a moment of recognition. She had earned the respect of the very people who had once dismissed her. But she knew this was only the beginning. There was still more to prove, and Maya was ready. Maya's mind raced as she made her way back to her small apartment that evening. The events of the day played over and over in her mind. Mr. Carter's words, his reluctant praise, echoed in her ears. It wasn't much, but it was more than she had expected. She had stepped up, corrected the mistake that could have ruined the company's deal, and for the first time in her life, someone had noticed. She wasn't just the maid anymore. But as Maya walked down the dimly lit street, She couldn't shake the feeling that her battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. When she reached her apartment, she found her mother sitting at the kitchen table, the smell of dinner still lingering in the air. Her mother looked up with a tired smile. "How was your day, sweetie?" she asked, her voice soft and welcoming. Maya smiled back, though her mind was still on the office. "It was good," she said, trying to sound casual. "I got some good news today. I might get more responsibility at work." Her mother's eyes lit up, a mixture of pride and concern flashing across her face. "That's wonderful, Maya," she said, her hands still. "But don't forget where you come from. Don't let them change you." Maya nodded, though she knew that it wouldn't be that simple. The world of the corporate elite, the world she had just started to dip into, was a far cry from the humble life she had grown up in. But it was a world that Maya was beginning to understand. The next day, things at work were different. Mr. Carter was no longer dismissive, but still distant. He didn't acknowledge her in the same way the executives did, but there was a subtle shift in the air. When he spoke to her, it was with more consideration, a hint of respect buried under his usual professional facade. Maya didn't let it go to her head. She knew that her work wasn't done yet. The other executives in the office, who had once ignored her, were now starting to take notice. Jessica, the head of logistics, gave Maya a sharp look as they passed each other in the hallway, as if evaluating her new place in the company. Maya felt the weight of that look. She wasn't one of them, not yet. She wasn't sure if she ever would be, but she had earned the right to be seen. She had earned the right to be heard. Later that afternoon, she was called into Mr. Carter's office. Her heart skipped a beat as she walked in, the door clicking shut behind her. Mr. Carter was seated at his desk, his expression unreadable. Without looking up, he motioned for her to sit. "I've been reviewing the shipping records," he began, his voice low. "You did a good job yesterday. You caught something no one else did." He paused, lifting his gaze to meet hers. "But I need to know if you're really capable of handling more than just this one mistake." Maya nodded. She had been waiting for this moment, knowing it was coming. "I'm ready, sir," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it." Mr. Carter studied her for a long moment before leaning back in his chair. "I'm going to give you a chance," he said finally. "There's a big project coming up, and I need someone to handle the details. It's going to require knowledge, focus, and attention to detail. It's not for the faint of heart." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she kept her face neutral. This was her moment. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. "I won't let you down," she replied, her voice unwavering. Mr. Carter nodded slowly. "Good. I'll expect you to be on top of everything. And, Maya," he paused, his expression softening just a touch, "don't forget that you earned this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Maya left his office with a newfound sense of purpose. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a player in the game, a force to be reckoned with. And as she walked back to her desk, she felt the eyes of the executives on her again. But this time, it wasn't with disdain. It was with something different. Respect. She knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more obstacles, but Maya was ready for them. She had already proven she could do more than anyone had ever expected, and she wasn't going to stop now. Maya sat at her small desk, the glow of her computer screen reflecting off her tired eyes. It had been a long day, but her mind was still racing. She had just been assigned to the new project, the one Mr. Carter had mentioned. It was a big deal, and everyone in the office knew it. She was now officially in charge of handling the logistics for a critical deal that could shape the future of the company. This wasn't just a task, it was a chance to prove once and for all that she belonged in this world, the world of high-powered executives and business decisions. The challenge ahead of her was massive. She had to coordinate multiple moving parts, deal with high-stakes contracts, and ensure that everything went smoothly. Maya knew that every decision she made could impact the outcome of the entire deal. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes. But unlike before, there was no room for self-doubt. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let anyone down. The days following her new assignment were a whirlwind. Meetings, emails, phone calls, and long hours at her desk filled her schedule. Maya was everywhere talking to suppliers, negotiating with clients, making sure every detail was covered. Every time she crossed paths with Mr. Carter or the senior executives, she held her head high, her confidence growing with each passing day. Still, she could feel the weight of their eyes on her, some of them curious, some of them skeptical, and some of them just waiting for her to fail. It was Jessica, the head of logistics, who seemed to be the most critical of her. Despite the respect Mr. Carter had shown her, Jessica still looked at her like she was an outsider, like she didn't belong in the room with the big players. Every time they met in a meeting, Jessica would make pointed remarks, subtly questioning Maya's authority. "Are you sure you have the right numbers, Maya?" Jessica asked during one of their project meetings. "This is a high-stakes operation. One mistake, and it could cost us millions." Maya didn't flinch. She had anticipated the challenge. "I've double-checked everything," she said calmly, her eyes meeting Jessica's. "I'm confident we're on track." But Jessica didn't let it go. "Well, I hope you're right," she replied with a sharp tone. It was moments like these that tested Maya's resolve. She knew that Jessica and the others might never fully accept her. They might always see her as the maid, the one who was just there to clean and serve. But Maya had learned that respect wasn't given, it was earned, and she had already started to earn it. The project continued to unfold, and despite the challenges, Maya managed to keep everything running smoothly. She solved problems before they became issues, handled unexpected delays with ease, and always kept the lines of communication open with every department involved. But it wasn't until the final week of the project that Maya truly proved her worth. There was a last-minute complication, a shipment was delayed, and the supplier was struggling to meet the deadline. Maya knew that if the shipment didn't arrive on time, it could derail the entire deal. Without hesitation, she took action. She reached out to the supplier, negotiated a new delivery plan, and coordinated with the shipping team to expedite the process. It wasn't an easy fix, but Maya was determined to make it work. The night before the shipment was due, Maya stayed late at the office, checking every detail one last time. Her eyes were tired, her head heavy, but she wouldn't stop. Not now. As the clock struck midnight, she received the confirmation everything was set. The shipment would arrive on time. The next morning, Mr. Carter and the rest of the executives were in a tense meeting when the news came in. The shipment had arrived, on schedule, without any issues. Mr. Carter looked up from the papers in front of him, a flicker of something approval, respect, crossing his face. He turned to Maya, who was standing near the door, quietly observing. "You did it," he said, his voice low but steady. Maya nodded, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "It was a team effort, sir," she replied, keeping her tone humble but confident. The executives in the room were quiet for a moment before Jessica spoke up, her voice softer than before. "I'll admit, I doubted you, Maya," she said. "But you proved me wrong." It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. Maya smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Thank you," she said, knowing that this was a moment she had earned. As the meeting ended and the executives filed out, Mr. Carter stayed behind. He approached Maya, his expression serious but not unkind. "You've earned your place here," he said quietly, "but don't think this is the end. It's just the beginning." Maya stood tall, feeling a surge of confidence. "I'm ready, sir," she said, knowing that this was her moment. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was someone who could change the course of a business deal, someone who could make things happen. She was finally seen, and she wasn't going anywhere. Maya stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. It had been a long day, but the exhaustion she felt didn't compare to the sense of accomplishment swelling in her chest. The project was a success. The shipment had arrived on time, the deal was secured, and for the first time, Mr. Carter had looked at her not with the dismissive gaze of an employee but with the kind of respect reserved for those who truly mattered. She hadn't just corrected a mistake, she had proven that she belonged. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, she couldn't help but think about what lay ahead. It had been one victory, but she knew that the real test was just beginning. She had earned Mr. Carter's respect, but now, she had to keep it. The next morning, the atmosphere in the office was different. There was a sense of recognition in the air, but also an unspoken pressure. Jessica no longer sneered when Maya passed by. But she didn't exactly welcome her either. It was clear that she wasn't going to give up her position as the office's gatekeeper without a fight, and Maya was prepared. She had learned quickly that respect in the corporate world wasn't just about doing your job well, it was about navigating the politics, reading the room, and making sure your voice was heard even when others tried to silence you. As the day wore on, Maya found herself at the heart of another challenge. A new project had been handed to her, a much bigger one this time, involving key negotiations with an international supplier. The stakes were high. This was her chance to prove that the first success wasn't a fluke. Mr. Carter called her into his office later that morning. As she entered, he was already seated, his hands folded on the table. "Sit down, Maya," he said, motioning toward the chair across from him. "We've got another big project on our hands, and I want you to take charge." Maya didn't hesitate. She sat down, her heart steady despite the weight of the responsibility. "I'm ready, sir," she said, her voice firm. "Mr. Carter gave a small nod, his expression neutral. "This one is bigger than the last. The supplier is tough to work with. They're not used to our standards, and they tend to push back on deadlines. You'll need to stay ahead of them." Maya listened intently. She had dealt with difficult suppliers before, but nothing at this scale. This was her opportunity to show everyone, Mr. Carter, Jessica, and the rest, that she could handle the pressure. "I understand," she replied. "I'll make sure everything is in order." As she left his office, her mind began to race with the details. She knew it wouldn't be easy. She had seen Mr. Carter's confidence in her, but the road ahead was long. She couldn't afford to falter now. Over the next few days, Maya threw herself into the project. She studied the supplier's history, their past negotiations, and their business practices. She learned everything she could about their operations and anticipated their next move. Her confidence grew with each step, and slowly, the project began to take shape. She coordinated with the logistics team, kept in constant contact with the supplier, and made sure every detail was addressed before it became an issue. But despite her best efforts, the supplier began to delay their shipments, and the pressure mounted. It was a delicate balance. Maya couldn't afford to let the deal fall apart. She stayed late at the office, reviewing the shipment schedules and drafting emails to ensure every deadline was met. But one night, as she was preparing to head home, she received an email from the supplier. The shipment had been delayed again, and this time, it was much worse. They were pushing back the deadline by 2 weeks. Maya felt her heart sink. This was the moment she had been dreading. If the deal fell through, everything she had worked for would come crashing down. But she refused to let it happen. She opened her laptop and immediately drafted a response. She knew she had to act fast. As she typed, her mind raced. She could feel the weight of her responsibility, but she wasn't going to back down. She was ready to take control. She outlined a revised plan, offering incentives for an earlier shipment and laying out the consequences if the deadlines weren't met. She hit send and leaned back in her chair, waiting. Hours later, she received a response from the supplier. The terms had been agreed to, and the shipment would be delivered on time. The deal was saved. Maya exhaled in relief, but she knew that the victory was just another step. She wasn't done yet. The next morning, Mr. Carter called her into his office again. This time, his expression was warmer. "You handled that well," he said. "I knew I made the right choice." Maya nodded, her confidence solidifying. She had faced the pressure, and she had come through. This was just the beginning. She had proven that she could handle the toughest challenges. But now, she was ready for whatever came next. Maya wasn't just the maid anymore. She was a leader in her own right, and she wasn't going to stop until everyone knew it. The weeks following the successful project felt like a whirlwind to Maya. She had earned her place in the company, but that didn't mean the challenges had stopped. In fact, they only seemed to grow bigger. With every new project she handled, there was more pressure, more expectations. The other executives, once skeptical of her, now watched her with a mix of respect and wariness. Jessica had softened, though it was clear she still considered herself the superior, and Maya would have to earn her full respect. But for now, Maya was more focused on the work. Mr. Carter had given her a new role, and with it came even greater responsibilities. The latest project was her biggest one yet. She was tasked with overseeing a merger between two major companies, a deal that could change the landscape of the industry. The stakes were high, and everyone in the company was watching her closely. As the days passed, Maya found herself navigating the complexities of corporate negotiations, balancing conflicting interests, and trying to ensure that everything went according to plan. It was exhausting, but it was also invigorating. She was no longer just the maid or the outsider. She was at the heart of something important, but as much as she tried to stay focused, there was a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. She had worked her way into the corporate world, but could she truly change it? Could she prove that someone like her, someone from a background like hers, truly belonged at the top? The doubt came in waves, but each time it rose, she pushed it down. She had already overcome so much, and this was just another challenge. One evening, as Maya was finalizing the last details of the merger agreement, Mr. Carter called her into his office again. This time, there was no business talk waiting for her. When she entered, he stood from behind his desk and gestured for her to sit. His expression was serious, but there was something in his eyes, a hint of something deeper. "Maya," he began, his voice softer than usual, "I need to ask you something." Maya felt a slight flutter in her chest. What could it be? Another challenge? More pressure? He looked at her carefully, as if weighing his words. "You've done well here, but I need to know if you're in this for the long haul. Are you ready for everything that comes with this kind of work? The sacrifices, the compromises?" Maya sat up straighter, her mind racing. She knew what he meant. The higher she climbed, the more she would be asked to sacrifice. The more she would have to give up. She knew the corporate world wasn't kind to people who weren't willing to play the game, but she wasn't like everyone else. She had never played by the rules. "I'm ready," she said firmly, meeting his gaze. "I've come this far, and I'm not going to stop now." Mr. Carter nodded, though his expression remained unreadable. "Good," he said quietly. "Then we're going to make sure you're prepared for what comes next. This merger is going to change everything. It's not just about business anymore. It's about power, influence, and control, and we need someone who can navigate all of that." Maya took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She wasn't just going to be part of the corporate world. She was going to take control of it. She wasn't going to let anyone, no matter their title or status, decide her worth. As she left Mr. Carter's office, her mind raced with the possibilities. This was her chance to prove herself not just as a capable employee, but as someone who could change the entire system. She had already fought to get to where she was, and now, she was ready to fight for more. The days turned into weeks, and Maya continued to work tirelessly on the merger. Each new challenge, an opportunity to prove her worth. As she stood in the final meeting before the deal was finalized, she could feel the eyes of the executives on her. They were all waiting to see how she would handle the pressure. And as the final signatures were being inked, Maya realized something she had already won. She had proven that she belonged here, that she had the power to change not just the outcome of the deal but the trajectory of her own life. As the meeting adjourned, Mr. Carter gave her a rare smile. "You did it," he said. "You proved me right." And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she truly belonged. She had come from nothing, but she had made it to the top, not through luck, but through sheer determination and the refusal to be ignored. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. Maya stood at the window of her office, overlooking the city below. The skyline was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, the light reflecting off the glass buildings like a promise of more to come. It had been several months since she had taken charge of the merger, and now, as the deal was officially complete, she felt a sense of pride settle deep in her chest. She had done it. But even as she looked out at the view, her mind couldn't help but wander. She had proven herself to Mr. Carter and the rest of the executives. She had climbed the corporate ladder in a way no one expected. Yet, as she stood in this moment, something lingered, something that made her pause. It wasn't just about the deal anymore, nor the recognition she had earned. There was something deeper she had been searching for all along, her place in this world, and the value she truly brought to it. She had spent her entire life trying to prove her worth to others, trying to show that she wasn't just the maid, the outsider, the one who didn't belong. But now, standing at the top, she realized that the only person she truly needed to prove herself to was herself. And yet, it was hard to escape the feeling that there was still a wall between her and the very people who had once doubted her. The other executives, though respectful now, still held her at arm's length. They had accepted her, yes, but they hadn't fully embraced her. She could feel it in the subtle glances, the silent judgments, the way they still made decisions without consulting her. It was as if she was still an outsider in their eyes, no matter how much she had accomplished. Jessica was the worst of them all. Even after the successful merger, there was no smile, no word of praise. Instead, Jessica remained cool, professional, and distant. There was no genuine acceptance, only the recognition of Maya's ability to get the job done. And it hurt. She had fought for this moment, worked tirelessly to prove her worth, and now, here she was, still standing alone. But she wasn't ready to give up. Maya knew that being accepted by the corporate elite would take more than just completing one successful deal or earning their respect. It would take time, but she wasn't about to stop. As she stood there, lost in thought, the door to her office opened. Mr. Carter stepped in, his usual composed demeanor softened slightly. "Maya," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a quiet respect. "You've done something remarkable here. I've been watching you closely, and I have to say, you've earned my trust." His words struck her like a wave, washing over the doubts she had been carrying. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of relief. Mr. Carter stepped closer, standing beside her as they both looked out at the city below. "You've proven yourself to me and to the company," he continued. "But the real test is still ahead. The corporate world is ruthless. It will never be enough to just succeed once. You have to keep fighting, keep pushing forward." Maya nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She had come so far, but Mr. Carter was right. The fight wasn't over. She had earned a seat at the table, but it was up to her to keep it. As he turned to leave, he paused, giving her a final look. "Don't forget," he said, his voice softening. "You've earned this, but you'll have to keep earning it every day." Maya watched him leave, the door closing quietly behind him. His words lingered in the air, a reminder of the road still ahead. But she wasn't afraid. She had faced the challenges, overcome the obstacles, and proved her worth. And now, she was ready to face whatever came next. She had come this far on her own terms, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. As the city stretched out before her, Maya felt a sense of clarity that had eluded her for so long. She wasn't just fighting for respect anymore. She was fighting for herself. And for the first time, she realized that she didn't need anyone's approval. She had already proven everything she needed to prove. She had earned her place at the table, and she wasn't going anywhere. Maya stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows in her office, staring at the city below. The lights from the skyscrapers blinked like distant stars, reminding her of how far she had come. Not so long ago, she was just a maid, someone people didn't notice, someone people didn't expect much from. But now, she was in the room with the decision-makers, leading multi-million-dollar projects, earning the respect of those who once dismissed her. Mr. Carter had been right when he told her that the real test was just beginning. And now, as she looked out over the city, she realized that she had passed it. It had been a long, hard journey, but every challenge, every moment of doubt, had shaped her into the woman she had become. She had fought for her place in a world that wasn't built for people like her. But now, she wasn't just part of the world, she was changing it. Maya knew she had earned her success. She had made her way from the bottom to the top, not by luck, but by determination, grit, and a belief in herself that no one could take away. As the months passed, the respect she had earned continued to grow. She no longer felt like an outsider in the corporate world. She was now seen as an equal by her colleagues and superiors alike. The others who had once doubted her were now the ones looking to her for guidance, acknowledging her expertise and leadership. Jessica, once her harshest critic, had finally come around. The two of them began working together, learning from each other, and complementing each other's strengths. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about mutual respect and understanding. Maya knew that things would never be perfect. The world she worked in was filled with challenges, power struggles, and sacrifices. But she was ready for all of it. She had learned how to navigate the complexities of the corporate world and had become a force to be reckoned with. As Maya sat back in her chair, A feeling of peace washed over her. She had done it. She had proven herself not just to the executives but to herself. The journey had been long, and at times, painful. But every step, every moment of struggle, had been worth it. She had earned her place in the world she had always dreamed of. And now, it was time to look forward. There was still so much more to do, so many more goals to reach. Maya knew that she was only getting started. The future was full of possibilities, and she was ready to take them all on. As she stood up and walked to the window, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had fought for her dreams, and she had made them a reality. The city below was her playground now, and she wasn't about to let anyone take it from her. With her head held high, Maya walked out of the office, ready to face whatever came next. She had come from nothing, but now she was everything she had ever wanted to be. The journey had been hard, but it had been worth every step, and as she stepped into the world, she knew one thing for sure: no one could ever take away what she had built. In this powerful tale of triumph and perseverance, Black stories unfold as Maya, a Black woman who starts off as a maid in a corporate office, defies all odds to prove her worth. From being dismissed by her superiors to leading major business deals, this Black story is a testament to the strength, resilience, and determination that can overcome any obstacle. As Maya climbs the corporate ladder, she faces challenges that test her resolve, but with every step, she earns the respect of those around her, showing that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve greatness. Throughout this Black story, Maya proves that it's not where you start, but where you end up that defines your journey. Watch as Maya transforms from being invisible to becoming a key player in the business world, earning the recognition she deserves. With each chapter, this Black story showcases the power of belief in oneself, determination, and the unyielding spirit of never giving up. Maya's story will inspire anyone who has ever been underestimated to rise above and show the world their true potential.